before we move on to the next session, I want to do a quick introduction. Like Karthik said, we will be having a managing talent complexity discussion. Again, another very, very relevant topic to today's times. Very exciting discussion that's going to happen. Speakers are Ahmed Elsherbini from Boeing India, Nataraj Kumar from Philips, and Alok Nanda from the G India Technology Center. The discussion is going to get moderated by Krishna Bandaru from Skill-Lync. So with that, over to the stage.
Pertinent topic. I think we have people from different industries, aviation, medical equipment, industrial, etc. Let me just go right into the topic. You all have led these large research centers, 5,000 plus people in India delivering work to your headquarters across the world. How has the nature of work changed in the last 2-3 years? How is it changing? And what are the skill sets required by the talent to deliver this work very effectively? Maybe I'll start right with you.
Yeah, great, thank you. So a very good question. When we start thinking about why companies maybe came to India a long time ago, and there was a lot of incentive around cost. That has completely changed, obviously. Right? I mean, with India graduating more than 1.5 million engineers and scientists, with the caliber of the universities and the educational institutions, really to leverage the capability out of India, companies are really now focused a lot more on end-to-end capability, complexity of work. So the nature of work has been shifting in that direction into trying to figure out how we can do more end-to-end from our Indian teams. So that was one angle that changed. The other angle that I think is important as well, it's funny that our previous speakers were just talking about it, is the infusion of digital into everything we do. Even as a aerospace company, the words digital thread and digital twin are words that we use every day now when we're talking about building airplanes. So with the data management systems enabling the digital thread, with the modeling systems now enabling having a digital twin. And for us, a digital twin exactly means what it sounds, which is, it's different than maybe all the different definitions mentioned by the previous speakers, but for us, it's really a replica of what the production system may look like, what the airplane may look like, and how they interact with one another. So as digital becomes so key for how we design and test and improve our product, also our engineers and the talent expected out of India shifts to some extent. So the traditional engineer that you think of is what we call a T-shaped engineer, depth and knowledge in what would be a typical engineering function, and then the horizontal would be breadth, right? Understanding adjacent technologies, adjacent functions, products. So what our chief engineer in Boeing says, Greg Hyslop, he says we now need more pie-shaped engineers. So you take the T and you add another vertical arm, and really that other vertical arm is around digital, data analytics, AI, ML. Understanding all of this makes the new talent we look for is the pie-shaped engineer. And if I just was to leave you with one quick example, why this is very important. If you look at something like the 787, the 787 has 2.3 million parts built and sourced all around the world, including obviously India. And then they come together and they have to be manufactured, assembled, and integrated in a very complex process. Many sources of data. After that airplane is put together, on the first flight test, every single flight test collects data from over 200,000 multimodal, inputs. And then when that airplane is in service, it generates a tremendous amount of data that we collect through 70 miles of wires and 180 million lines of code. And that's just for the avionics and the flight systems. So you can imagine the importance of big data in the talent we look at.
Yeah, so I've had the privilege of being part of the G India Technology Center for the last 22 years, and I've seen the demands for talent evolve over the years. And as Ahmed said, when we started 1999 or 2000, it was mostly about cost arbitrage and productivity. Those were the metrics we would use to define the success of a team in India. But very quickly, we realized that the real benefit coming from the team was actually innovation. And it completely changed the way we started looking for talent and also started looking for what to expect from that talent. Innovation, product development, product ownership became the metric. Then one change that happened that completely changed the way the teams in India started getting formed was this change from when I joined GE, about 70-80% of the revenue of GE would come from North America or Western Europe. Today that equation is that 65-70% of the revenue comes from outside of North America and Western Europe, and Asia became the growth engine for GE. And GE found us right in the middle of that growth. And suddenly it was then all about organic growth. It was all about customer responsiveness. It was all about supply chain development and responsiveness, customer relationship. And when the metrics change, when the expectations change, the demand for talent evolves, and that's what I have seen. And the latest stage is, again, I would agree with the pie-shaped engineer concept that Ahmed shared with all of us. Digital is now key to any product. The number of sensors that you see on any engine now, any modern engine, are mind-boggling. One flight from, say, Delhi to San Francisco would generate 1 trillion worth of data. I mean, like bytes of data. So now the need for any engineer to evolve includes the evolution of integration of digital into technology. So that's the phases, those are the phases that I've seen, starting from cost arbitrage, coming to innovation, product development, graduating to creating organic growth by developing regional product, then getting on to developing customers and suppliers, and finally now the stage is where all of this has come together. But then how do you graduate, especially in India with the kind of digital talent we'll have, to lead the way for the company in integrating digital with everything that we do. So that's been the stages that I've seen over the last 2 decades.
Thanks, Alok. So Nataraj, 5,000 plus people working primarily on healthcare, right? Can you tell us the journey of skills and what you're looking forward in the skill set of Indian engineers going 2-3 years forward?
Pretty much very similar to what Ahmed and Alok shared. The campus here, Philips campus here, started in 1996, starting with cost arbitrage, just working on second generation products. But today, almost 50% of the software delivered within all the products within Philips goes out of the site here in Bangalore. So what I mean to say is today, you see, because of digitization, a lot of shift happens in terms of software controlled, software based systems. Digital technologies are prevalent everywhere. So the cost of investment is also quite low, which means that like any other innovation site, the talent in India, in Bangalore, are equally positioned as any other talent across the globe. Having said that, within healthcare, if you see like any other industry, there are 3 themes that I would like to touch upon. One is especially post-COVID, the digitization need within healthcare has got accelerated a lot, which was, healthcare, because of the regulations, the speed is a bit low. But post-COVID, this has got accelerated. I'll come to that a bit. The second one is we see policies and guidelines around use of data, privacy, the need for understanding security, the frequent upgrades around security, as well as the continuously evolving regulatory standards, especially when you use data and AI, are also constantly changing. So we need to keep in pace with that as well. The third part is like any other industry, agile is the name of the game. Even though you may be in a regulated industry, there is a real need to be able to be agile, have very constant releases, go test your concepts with the market, come back, and customers are really expecting frequent releases. So you get into a SaaS-based model. You look at how do you really re-architect your systems such that even within the regulatory industry, how can you really make fast experiences. Now, if I touch briefly on the digitization itself, there are three parts. One is hyper personalization is the need, which means you really need to have a lot more data around a particular person that needs to be brought together. Then everything really needs to be connected. Anytime, anywhere is the mantra now within healthcare as well. And the third piece, customers and patients are looking at more and more integrated solutions. So it is not just about somebody who knows knowledge around a single product or a system, but you need to know last. But I would like to sum up in one thing when you talked about what skills are required, apart from what generic skills everybody would speak about in terms of understanding cyber security or digital skills. Critical to any industry, I feel same as us in healthcare, is a very good combination of these digital skills plus the domain knowledge, and then really having the end-to-end.
Thanks, Nataraj, for the view. I think all three of you have talked about how digital skills or functional skills, industry-specific skills are key for scaling up delivery. What are the upskilling or reskilling programs or the L&D programs that you are taking up in order to ensure that the workforce is continuously up to date with what is required from them? Ahmed, I'll start with you again.
Yeah, no, thanks, Krishna. I think it's even a little more than just what's required, right? It's what's necessary to retain and keep the talent engaged, right? So when you think about it, I think for us at Boeing, we're privileged that we have self-development as part of our DNA, right? So from day one, you come in and you're encouraged to self-develop, you're supported, you're in a lot of areas expected to continue to self-improve yourself. So that happens through different modes. Some are very structured, such as what we call the LTP program, Learning Together program. So that's a program that we have that pays 100% of the tuition for most STEM-related degrees or certificates, right? So it's a wonderful program. Day one on the job, the minute you become a Boeing engineer, you can go sign up for an outstanding course and or a degree, and Boeing will pay for it. I believe since the inception of that program, it has paid over 1.8 billion in tuition fees so far, right? So there's very structured, initiated actions such as LTP. And then I would say there's the mode of learning that's handcrafted courses. I call them handcrafted because they're going to be very unique. It might be done by what we call our tech fellows, subject matter experts, or a lead of the team, where they would design a specific course for a specific subject for their teammates, for others who want to learn about that team or integrate with it. So knowledge transfer and upskilling through real-time learning from subject matter experts. And then the third stream, I would say, is around our focus on versatility. I think Nataraj mentioned that a little bit as well. We all talked about it, is you need our engineers nowadays, that horizontal line in the T or in the pie it's very important. You have to be well aware of many different adjacent technologies and products around what you do. So we have rotational programs that encourage versatility in the engineers' careers. They're maybe a little more geared or leveraged by early career, but truly they're designed for folks across the life cycle. So I think those three different ways of developing our team is what we focus on. I was reading some research about differences between Gen X, for example, and Gen Z, millennials actually. And a typical Gen Xers in the US would have went through 7 to 9 jobs in their entire career. A millennial would go through 15 to 20, right? So a millennial is expecting a new job every 2 to 3 years. So it's not about what training or upskilling is just required, it's really what's expected. This is what we need, what our new employees expect from us.
That's a great input, Ahmed.
Yeah.
Maybe coming to you, Alok, GE was one of the pioneers in tapping the high-end talent from India way back in the 90s. How have the L&D programs changed? What are the upskilling programs that you're taking right now with all the verticalization that's happening in GE?
So I would say, keeping the structure of GE aside, I think the needs for talent, what we are observing, have been evolving. And I'll describe two types of talent. One is like the traditional core, hardcore engines, expertise, the mechanical guys, the CFD guys, all the dynamics, fluid mechanics, all that kind of stuff. You know, I studied the same books my father studied, and my son, if he would have become a mechanical engineer, would have studied the same. So, you know, the skilling or upskilling that is required for those guys is more to get them to understand the product better, to get them understand the customer needs better. So we have programs like, we have engines in our lab where we get people to assemble, disassemble engines. We get people exposure to go to the shops. We invest a lot in getting engineers to field where they experience the product and they experience the customer's needs firsthand, develop empathy, become stronger engineers. I mean, so that's a very different kind of upskilling, skilling that we've always invested in. Now what we've started investing in these people is also to give them exposure to data science, because we believe that every engineer must understand their data sources and must be able to derive insights, and from those insights derive interventions that are needed based on that. So that's what we are investing in. So that's one type of talent. The other type of talent is more digital, hardcore digital talent. You know, if my father, what tech stack he studied, if I studied the same tech stack, I mean, I would never get a job. And if my son probably has a better understanding of the newer tech stack than I have. Okay, so it's a very different thing. The kind of upskilling that is required is almost survival upskilling for those people, because otherwise the obsolescence of talent becomes extremely fast in the digital world. And you know, all our systems are based on valuing experience, and suddenly the newer talent, the newer guys coming from the campus probably have a better understanding of the newer tech stack than the people you have for 10 years. And those people, if you don't invest in, I mean, become obsolete. And so the investment that we are making in that kind of a talent is extremely different. I actually have a chart where we talk about the tech stack and who is working on which tech stack, and we color code it, and the gray ones are the ones which are getting obsolete, and how do we get them to the green or the red ones, okay, where we move the talent through by investing in them and encouraging them to invest in themselves and allocating resources and time so that our teams don't become like obsolete, and we don't get into a situation where, I mean, I always have this saying that anybody who works for me, if he goes and applies for a job, should get 3 jobs with at least 30% hike, but they should still stay with us. So all that investment that is required on that talent is actually very different in this newer age digital world where the sons are maybe better equipped than their fathers in tech stack, whereas in the other stage where everybody studied the same books, right? So that's the way we are approaching how we upskill and how we make investments.
That's great input, Alok. Maybe just taking off on that point of retaining employees, Nataraj. I know you've been pushing a lot of initiatives around culture, attracting talent and retaining them at Philips. If you could just tell us about the specific things that you're doing at Philips for both attracting and retaining talent, that will be great. And is L&D a critical component to attract and retain talent? Maybe you could stress on that as well.
Yeah. I think we all agree that effective learning goes much beyond just training, right? Today, training has become so much in silos. There are so many options available to get trained, online courses, through internal L&D means and things like that. But to be an effective learning, you know, there are 3 parts that we always say in the industry, right? That's the 10, 20 and 70. So 10% is what you could do your multiple trainings, classroom trainings, you can have flash with certificates and things like that. But that's not really going to solve the industry problem. You really need to deliver value. So I would try to focus on the middle 20%, which I think is critical. The 70% is where you really learn on the job. You have a project, you really learn on the job. Now 20% I feel is the real bridge, and that's something which I feel is most neglected, where people have to learn from each other. So a few of the things that we are doing is to start with job families. Maybe there are data scientists and or there are people who are project and program managers. So we have formed, so the community has a core team member who are the reach out experts. So for example, we have in Philips Bangalore, we have about 37 different businesses operating, but each one could operate as a silo. But we have kind of brought these kind of job family based communities together. People now know who are the experts to reach out to, so they really can reach out. Secondly, within these communities, they're looking at a charter around, for example, most people would like to have experiences before they can get to a new job, right? Sometimes when you finish your training, you don't have an opportunity to start working on something that you like. So we have created something called gigs. So the gigs are where an expert creates a problem statement, or probably you provide a data set to a number of people who can have access and mature the algorithm. And people can enroll for those gigs beyond their defined scope of work. So which means apart from the training that they got, they can also get to look at work on these projects, and these projects also have to deliver value. They bring in some meaning to the site or to the business. So these are a few things that we are working on as a community. So I feel the 20% has to be emphasized. And that part is not just an HR job. That's what I wanted to say. Apart from it's not an L&D job or an HR job, but this is where practitioners and people come together and make it happen.
That's great, Nataraj. Basically, talent retention and management is number one on the agenda for even senior management across. So coming back to you, Ahmed, I'm sure you've managed these engineering centers across different countries. What are the very India-specific challenges to attracting and retaining talent?
So obviously the first one is India is one of the few places around the world where everyone's here, right? All industries, all multinationals, everyone is here. You might hear of automotive hub in the US or the Silicon Valley of, where we focus on IT or software. In India, it's everything. It's aerospace, it's medical, it's health, it's, you name it. So, and everyone is realizing the tremendous opportunity and access to talent in India. So there's fierce competition. And you're not always competing with who you typically compete with in other markets. At Boeing, I could be competing with, actually anyone here, right? So we can all be competing with one another, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, you name it, even though we're building airplanes, right? So that's one thing. The second thing is with such large influx of new engineers and scientists every day, I'm seeing a very significant, vast arrays of expectations from the employees. Alok was just talking about the difference in generations. A Gen Z would not have the same expectations, especially in India, right, around work-life balance and the importance of seniority, for example, as some of our senior employees. So managing through that is a little unique to India as well. I mean, it exists in the other markets, but I think it's more accentuated over here. The third one is maybe a little more cultural, is what I see. In India is a very cultural, collectivistic society as compared to your typical, American or Western European culture, right? Where it's very more individualistic. So that offers significant advantages right off the bat, because everyone is concerned of everyone else, and everyone is worried about the goodness of the group. But with such a mindset comes new challenges that are very unique, I think, to India or cultures similar to India as opposed to other parts of the world. However, if you embrace it, make it work in your advantage, it's very good for any organization.
Maybe I'll come to you, Nataraj. Attrition is seen as a big challenge for all GCCs or engineering service providers, etc. For you, how do you see attrition in terms of what is an acceptable level, and what are you guys doing specifically to arrest attrition?
Definitely 0 is the acceptable level, but of course we'll have to manage low performance as well. So definitely 0 is not the number. But now more than ever we do really face war for talent. Everybody needs people with digital capabilities, people with software skills. One of the things that we realized is that while, like Alok also mentioned, salary could be a factor, which was also accelerated because of COVID. The social connect and the sense of belonging is extremely important. So we are also looking at what is it that we could do as an organization in terms of bringing that sense of belonging, creating the better purpose for people, looking at the employee value proposition, and how do we really ensure that people have that feeling of being together, learning together, and then growing as a team. So that is part one. The second one, when we reached out to a number of employees across grades, across functions, across competencies, we did some kind of a focus group discussions. And one thing that came out is people said, I don't have enough time invested in my individual development plan. The development planning does not end with just listing a few trainings, right? It's about where is my career going? What is my career path option? If I'm a DevOps engineer, what is the next step for me? Or if I have a data scientist, what is the next step for me? So looking at right from the job catalog, looking at the career path options, making it much more visible to people in terms of what are the experiences that you could have. How could you get those experiences via formal classroom trainings, online training, but also probably participating in the gig projects that I mentioned, or learning from peers from other businesses on similar things like digital architecture and things like that. So that's another thing that we're looking at, a holistic learning journey for the talent. Starting not just listing a couple of trainings you need to do that you lack because it came out of your appraisal system, but really looking at it in a holistic way.
This is my last question, and then I'll open it up to the audience. Alok, you've been in GE for the last 22 years. You must have recruited loads of talent. There's a lot of action in the skilling space by the government, academia, and industry saying that we need to make students more industry ready. What is your take on it? What does the academia, government, or in the industry, what do they need to do more to ensure that engineers joining you are more industry ready?
I think what I've been seeing in last 10 years is very encouraging, where there is a lot more emphasis on academia, industry, and government coming together and working on challenging problems. Earlier, what would happen if I would go to an IIT, I mean, the discussion would be, okay, what can GE sponsor? Those discussions have completely changed. Now, if I go to an IIT, okay, what is the challenging problem can we solve? So let's get together, go to government, get funds, work together, solve a challenge. I mean, we have several examples working with some of the premier institutions in India, where we've defined a challenge, gone to the government, bid for funding, got combined funding, where industry and academia work together and do cutting edge research. So I think that is very important. When I see IITs not even in top 100 institutions across the world, something is wrong. And I think that's the metric probably that is missing, because the talent is better than anywhere else in the world. The institutions are better than anywhere else in the world. I have come out of that same system, and I rub shoulders with the best in the world, and I have firm belief that our talent can be outclass anybody in the world. What we miss is this engaging our academia to solve the most challenging problems of the world by not creating an ecosystem where industry and academia and government come together and solve challenging problems. Very encouraged in the last 10 years, but I think we have a long way to go to be similar to what we see in the Western world.
Excellent. We'll just open it up to questions from the audience.
Thanks a lot. My question is in two parts and open to any one of our esteemed panelists. Part one is very simple. There has been a huge change in the behavior of the talent. Yesterday, when we were in a discussion with the senior leadership ER&D offsite, the piece that came through was, now the talent doesn't look at their assignments as career. They look at it as jobs, which somewhere is hurting the industry one way or the other. That's part one. Part two, idea over hierarchy is what the fresh mind, fresh talent looks for. How do you address that? If there is a thought process there, it is something that we would like to take home.
Yeah, let me take the second part of your question first. I forgot what your first part was. So.
Can you repeat the first part again?
Yeah.
Talent per
Jobs,
se.
jobs, CS jobs.
So we come from, I can speak for myself and my generation, we still believe there's a career that we go for. We don't skip job for the doing sake. Today it's a job, it's not a career. I'm not bound to any organization. I love working in a place till the point that I'm interested in the project, and then I just skip, or I take a break, I take a sabbatical. That's what is there in the new, fresh talent that's there up in the marketplace. They're talented, but you just can't anchor them down. That's the challenge here.
Yeah, so I mean, let me start and then you can get other views. So if you think about what you said first, that okay, now the new generation is looking for job, not career. You ask them, they might not feel that way. I think sometimes we overemphasize the way we grew is the way to grow. I mean, I actually feel it refreshing that some of our younger generation is putting more meaning to life and making life as the central part of their journey rather than some of the things that were very important for us, the corner office or a bigger chair or all that stuff is gone from their vocabulary. So I find it extremely refreshing and more power to that generation because they are teaching us how to live life. And I really appreciate that. The second part of your question again, I mean, if you
Idea.
can.
Idea too.
Yeah, so the idea to hierarchy, I think the days where we had influence because of hierarchy are gone. There is no real influence due to hierarchy. We do, suppose my boss says something and I don't like it, but I still do it because he's my boss. That's not influence. And I have no engagement to that. I do it because, okay, I get salary and, I mean, it's okay. But if somebody tells me something and I truly touches my heart and I am fully engaged and I do it because of that, so influence without authority or hierarchy is the only influence. In my books, everything else is BS, okay, which actually has no meaning in the real contemporary leadership journey, right? So that's my view, and I will open.
I fully agree. I think for younger generation now, more and more purpose has become more important. We clearly see that. I also briefly touched upon the point that creating that sense of belonging, more and more younger generation are looking forward to a community that they want to work with, grow with the community and learn. That I see much more stronger than people in the previous generation where they were so much focused on the job, career, stick to one company, but then being more loyal alone is not the key now, right? People really want to come together, and that sense of belonging as they see, they're ready to stick on, and they're really also looking up to leaders. Is there a learning environment for me? Is there a continuous learning? Is there continuous feedback for me? So those are all the small ingredients that come together to really make a decision. COVID didn't help because most people were remote, so there are multiple options, a lot of other things went into their mind. But now coming together, innovating together is really helping. But also on the point of idea to hierarchy, I think there are multiple forums, as you rightly said, it's a culture and it has to be leader-led. So in the culture of an organization, people have to be ready to embrace ideas coming in from any level within the organization. But on the way we need to reciprocate is to really help them to really understand, an idea is good, but then I also really want you to understand what are the, will this really solve a customer need? Do you have the right insights and inputs to be able to do that? Will this bring the real business value? So the whole helping them with around the idea then helps them to think that just simply submitting an idea is not good enough. But then I can reach out to any person in the organization.
Yeah, fully agree with both Nataraj and Alok. Maybe just on the first piece about, it's a challenge because people are looking at, employees are looking at the project as just a job, right? Not a career. I think it's only a challenge if we try to fight it. I mean, I would actually would love to embrace it because trying to assume that you're going to have no attrition, trying to assume that you're going to just have the same people doing the same work for decades is just not going to happen, right? So we should embrace the fact that people want to do different things, people want to stay excited, and we should have the structure, right? Which is not easy, but we should have the structure so that we're not a single point of failure everywhere, where if you leave your job, now we're all collapsing, right? So how do we create our team structure, how we do our work, our standard work, knowledge sharing, all of that, so that you can be empowered to go do whatever job you love, 2 years, and go do something else for 2 years and stay happy, right? Stay engaged. So I think that's important.
Any other questions?
I'm Ajay. I'm from Scient. I have one question on the ID. You must have all read the news in the latest channels about moonlighting, which is a big issue. And why don't we create some sort of an ID, like Indian government is taking a lot of initiatives on Aadhaar based and PAN based. Similarly, for a global industry of resources, do you think that will it be wise to create an ID so that many things can be taken care of? One is moonlighting. Secondly, multiple issues can be resolved of misbehavior or good behavior, tracking of good resources. Maybe I'm of the opinion that these features can be used both in positive and negative ways, but industry should think of such capability which can help identify good resources, or maybe identify those who are notorious, or maybe for avoiding moonlighting. I have been in this industry for long, and I have seen many resources of many kinds. So I felt a need of this kind of ID which could help the industry. I'm open to your views, please.
Thanks, Ajay, for the question.
Maybe you answer it yourself.
Sorry?
Maybe you answer it yourself.
No, I think you guys should answer.
Hey, so let me take a shot at that one, Ajay. I'll have to say I disagree. You said it right. There is good and bad that can come out of this. The bad to me is just too much, right? It's just having an ID tagged to a person. We've all had bad bosses. We've all been bad bosses at some point in our career, right? That baggage shouldn't carry on forever. We shouldn't have the person carry that baggage throughout their career. Now, regarding the moonlighting, I feel like we shouldn't maybe overreact to that one, because it will sort itself out, right? Because if we truly have our people engaged on meaningful projects, they won't have time or ability to moonlight, and it will show. If we're giving them really challenging, meaningful projects, and they're successfully doing it and moonlighting, I want to know who that person is so that I can give them a raise and give them, like, you know, a bigger job, right? If they're able to do both very successfully. So I let it sort itself out, I think.
And in some ways it's fraud,
Yeah.
you know, and it will be dealt with like a fraud. And so I don't think industry should create some kind of a passport for that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there are different thinking around this, but then I think this creating that sense of belonging, like Ahmed mentioned, I think that's extremely critical.
Yeah.
I think we've run out of time. First of all, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules for attending these sessions. Very fresh perspectives from 3 different industries, and from people who've spent about 20 plus years in the same company, right? Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a fascinating session and great speakers and great insights. And let me try to summarize whatever that I heard. I've just tried to capture them in 3 bullet points. The future of work, that is changing towards more agile and continuous. You want to create a customer experience real time. I think that's definitely something that is changing. 2, the future of workers. I think the expectation is everyone to be multi-skilled, whether it is on digital, automation, analytics, and artificial intelligence. I think that's going to be expected out of every worker, whether you are a mechanical, electrical, software engineer. I think this is going to be the need of the hour. And also the generational shift, whether it is millennial, Gen Z, dealing with Gen X, and they see that life is central and job is just the work that they do. So I think it's important for all of us to understand when you talk about future of worker. And also the future of work environment, whether it is hybrid, remote working, and the culture is going to be so critical, and culture of learning and the ability to really deal with flat structures or idea to hierarchy. How do you really make all this to be enabled in a work environment? I think all this will play a major role in terms of how is it going to happen.